Welcome back to another installment of Free Money NFL Week 8 edition. Where is the season gone? We are almost at the halfway point, but still plenty of money to be made the rest of the way. Overall, last week we had a pretty solid week, going 2 for 3 on the betting side of things, and every one of our fantasy picks scored a touchdown except for Chase Claypool, who decided last week was a good time to put up a dud. But you live and you learn. We'll move on. Let's get right into it this week. On the fantasy side, start Carson Wentz. He scored at least 21.4 points in 4 of his last 5 games, during which he's averaging 23.5. He is in a great spot this week to continue his success, as the Eagles will host the hapless Dallas Cowboys and their defense, or lack thereof. DK Metcalf put up more of an effort last week on the defensive side than the entire Cowboys defense combined. Dallas fields the league's worst defense, and quarterbacks have averaged nearly 21 fantasy points per game against them. In fact, 3 signal callers have scored at least 28.5 points against them in their first 7 contests of 2020. If you want an elite quarterback leading your fantasy team this week, start Carson Wentz. Start Melvin Gordon. Why? Revenge game. Revenge is a dish best served cold, and Melvin Gordon is out for it against his former team. Yeah, the Chargers made him an offer, so he shouldn't be mad, but it clearly wasn't enough money, and that doesn't fit our narrative, so he's pissed off and he's ready to go. Gordon has not been great this season, but he's still averaging more than 15 points per game and has had 12 or more fantasy points in 4 of 5 games. So if that's your ceiling, that is still pretty high. In a bad game, he's getting you over 10 points. But I don't think he'll have a bad game this week. The Broncos lost Philip Lindsay to a concussion in their game last week. His status for Week 8 is still in question. He did practice this week, but if Lindsay's ultimately out, Gordon is going to be a solid option this week, and I think Lindsay's probably going to be limited on carries out of a caution. The Chargers' defense has been bad against opposing running backs, which was evident last week when James Robinson put up nearly 32 fantasy points against them. The Chargers also gave up a lot of receptions to running backs, 7.2 to be exact. Gordon is really good at catching balls out of the backfield, so this is a perfect matchup for him. He's going to be motivated against his former team, so you should be motivated to put him in your lineup this week. Start Tyler Boyd. This is the second week in a row that a Bengals receiver has made our list. Last week, Boyd produced a solid line with 13 targets, 101 yards, and nearly 28 fantasy points against the Browns. He should be in your lineup this week, as a favorable matchup against the Titans is next on the slate, and he is emerging as one of Joe Burrow's favorite targets. Burrow is averaging 42 passes a game, so despite the fact that he's sharing targets with A.J. Green and T. Higgins, there are still plenty of passes to go around, and Boyd's going to get his fair share of them. They're facing a Titans defense that has struggled against slot receivers, allowing 7.5 catches and the 3rd most fantasy points per game to the position. In fact, 5 wideouts have scored at least 10 points against them on routes run out of the slot. Guess what? Boyd runs the majority of his routes out of the slot. The Titans have also given up the 4th most fantasy points to wide receivers overall this season, regardless of where they line up. So, this is a no-brainer. Start Tyler Boyd this week. Start Brandon Ayuk. General rule of thumb this season. I don't know if you've noticed this trend, but if a wide receiver is facing the Seahawks this season, you should probably start him. Their defense has been dreadful against wide receivers, allowing 60.2 fantasy points per game. You heard that correctly. That is not a typo. 60.2. No other team is allowing even 50 points a game. And Ayuk has some momentum coming into this game. He's coming off a solid game against the Patriots, producing 6 catches on 7 targets and 17.5 fantasy points. That's against a pretty decent Patriots secondary with Stephon Gilmore. Deebo Samuel out with a hamstring injury, Ayuk could wind up seeing even more targets in this tremendous matchup. He can also get you points on the ground. The Niners love to use Ayuk on toss sweeps, and he appears to be unstoppable on those with his speed. Start Ayuk this week. Finally, start Jimmy Graham. it's been a while since we've shown the tight ends some love in this segment, but in honor of National Tight Ends Day, I decided I would throw the tight ends a bone. It's another revenge game as Jimmy Graham faces his former team in the Saints. Jimmy Graham's been a borderline number one tight end for fantasy fans this season, averaging better than 10 points per game. He'll be back in the starting mix this week too as Graham faces his former team, the Saints, at Soldier Field. Tight ends have thrived against New Orleans, scoring 6 touchdowns and averaging the second most points, 18.9 per game. So for those looking for a tight end with a decent floor, Graham is well worth taking a look at. It is also worth noting that the Bears like to target Jimmy Graham in the red zone this season, so start Jimmy Graham. On to the betting side of things. Take the Colts over the Lions. The Colts are favored by 3 points in this one. Colts have a veteran quarterback and a very good head coach in Frank Reich, and they are coming off a bye week, giving them extra time to prepare for the Lions. On top of that, they are 3-2 against the spread as favorites this season, so they have a winning record. Don't let the Lions' 2-game winning streak fool you. They beat a horrible Jags team, and it took Todd Gurley accidentally scoring for them to escape Atlanta. The Falcons' defense is giving up 6 yards per play, and the Lions could only muster 23 points, and it came down to literally the last play of the game for them to do so. This week, they're facing a much better defense, so they're going to be in for a shock. Plus, the Colts are getting their best player, Darius Leonard, back. The Colts' defense has ranked 4th in scoring defenses, only giving up 19.17 points per game. Detroit's defense, meanwhile, is giving up just over 27 points per game, well over the league average. Leonard coming back is the X factor for me. When he is on the field, this defense for the Colts is significantly better. He really energizes them, and he's flying all over the place, making a lot of tackles. Take the Colts, and do so with confidence. Take the Packers over the Vikings. Packers are favored by 6. They should have no problems covering that number. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers have feasted against struggling defenses this year. Packers have won and covered all 4 games against teams that give up more than 25 points per game, and Minnesota certainly fits that description. They rank 30th in the league in scoring defenses, giving up a whopping 32 points per contest. The Vikings defense is a shell of himself, with their front 7 really banged up. Linebacker Anthony Barr is out with a pectoral muscle injury, and defensive end Daniel Hunter is out with a neck injury. Both are placed on injured reserve. Minnesota also shipped out defensive end Yannick Ngakoue to Baltimore last week. So, an already bad defense for the Vikings just got significantly worse. The Vikings have nothing to play for, and they are essentially out of the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers, meanwhile, has 3 4-touchdown performances and 6 outings for the Packers, one of which came against his Week 8 opponent in the Vikings. Along with that, if that isn't enough for you, the Packers have historically been very successful against the Vikings when they're at Lambeau and Aaron Rodgers is under center. Roll with the Packers once again this week. Finally, take the Titans over the Bengals. Titans are favored by 6. When I saw this line, I was shocked. Jump all over it while you can before it moves. It's already moved. It opened at 4.5, which I really should have jumped on, but 6 is fine. They'll have no problems in this one. They're going to win by a lot more than 6. I think a lot of people sold their Titans stock after their loss last week to the Steelers. Don't sell your stock in the Titans. They lost to a very good team, and they only lost by 3, in a game they didn't particularly play well in. Mike Vrabel knows this, and they were in a national televised game, so you know they're going to be motivated to come out firing in this one and prove they're no fluke. Their offense has been humming this year. They rank 4th in points per game, 5th in total yards per game, 5th in rushing yards per game, and 4th in passer rating. On top of that, they do not turn the ball over. They've only turned it over 3 times this year, which is good enough for 2nd best in the NFL. On the flip side, the Bengals defense is bad and banged up. They are giving up an average of 6.1 yards per play. The Bengals have also lost by an average of 7.8 points this season, so the Titans should really have no issues covering the spread. Hammer the Titans this week. That's all I have for you. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like or subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for listening, and enjoy your football Sunday.